This is ChangeMakers with Katie Gore, finding the right solutions for the affordable housing community.
Welcome back to my conversation with ChangeMaker Cory Halbardier, the CEO of Spacial Homes. We've been talking about how ADUs or accessory dwelling units can be part of the solution to the housing crunch affecting California and the rest of the country. Cory, are there any analytics on how property values around those ADUs are impacted?
It's a good question, Katie. I haven't seen any data so far on how it impacts houses right around ADUs. I guess if we stand back and sort of think about the supply and demand curve, the demand right now is much higher than the supply. I think the most recent data I saw said that in California, we are shy about 3 million houses. So it means that demand for housing is dramatically outstripped the supply for housing. So if we can, and I think that that's one of the reasons that the pricing has continued to skyrocket here in California. So if we can add more houses in places where there are a lot of jobs, like the Bay Area, like LA, like San Diego, then it can slow down that very fast growth rate in property values.
Have you experienced any resistance with the ADUs conceptually or in communities?
I haven't experienced it. I know for sure that especially in more congested areas, that there is a concern from homeowners that parking will be an issue. My experience so far has been that as ADUs are going in, it really is creating a non-issue. In most of the areas where we're putting ADUs, there is already a ton of street parking. So if one house on that street or two houses on that street got an additional ADU, then it puts one or two additional cars. The majority of people who move into ADUs only bring either no cars or one car with them. In a very, very rare circumstances does that one ADU bring two cars with it.
The California Department of Housing calls ADUs an innovative and affordable, effective option for this much needed housing that you just mentioned. I think you said 3 million additional homes. What do you think, if we were going to look at a pie graph here, what do you think the slice would be for ADUs?
That's an interesting question, Katie. I just did a little quick Google research. It looks like 14 million households in California. So with 14 million households in California, if we got to 10%. So right now, the research shows that if LA stays on track with their current build pace for ADUs, that by 2026, 10% of homes in LA would have ADUs. So if we take that as the number, that 10% of homes in California could have ADUs, that would solve about half of that, the current problem of 3 million.
Wow, that's impressive, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about a business pipeline right there for you guys. Doesn't get much better than that, does it?
No, it sure doesn't.
So tell us about the lifestyle. I'm curious, what do you see or what do people tell you after they've lived in an ADU?
So I can actually speak from personal experience. Several years ago, I found myself living in an accessory dwelling unit for a number of years. What I really appreciated about it is that I still got to live in a neighborhood at a fraction of what it cost me to live in a 2 or 3 or 4 bedroom house. So I still had people walking in front of my house. I still had a garage. I had neighbors across the street on either side. I was right down the street from a park. So it allowed me the same experience of living in a neighborhood as anybody else that lives in a single family house. But it was at a much lower price point for me. I loved it. I absolutely loved living in my ADU. It also, for somebody who is single, it provides a simpler life. So they're not cleaning 2, 3, 4 bedroom house. You're cleaning a studio, you're cleaning a 1 bedroom. So to clean the whole house from top to bottom, it takes less than an hour. And which means you can spend time doing other things that you want to do in life. So where I think is also the difference, a little bit of the difference between an accessory dwelling unit and a tiny home is often tiny homes are kind of converted or more similar to like a mobile home, but on the outside they look like houses, but oftentimes they're up on wheels. Where an accessory dwelling unit really is a small house. It's a full house. It has a living room, a bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, dining area. So most of these aren't convertible spaces. They are single use living room and a single use dining area, and so somebody living inside of an ADU can have the same experience of somebody living in a primary residence.
That's a good distinction to make between the ADU and the tiny home because, sometimes I think they get lumped together there.
Yeah.
I understand the freedom of simplicity here with the 800 square feet. And I also see, it's a good investment for people who own the lot or who wanted to stabilize their housing or, whatever the driving factors are for the ADUs. I wonder if we see the need, we see the trend. It's a good analogy that you said towards solar because that obviously, is something that we can all recognize. Are you getting inquiries from other cities, Boston or Raleigh? Are they doing their own kickstart or are they, coming to California and asking, how did you guys do? What are your laws? What kind of best practice sharing are you hearing or seeing?
So, as I've been reading some of the articles coming out of spots like Chicago and New York, and New Jersey, they're starting these pilot programs, and many of them are modeled after the California laws, which allow an ADU by right. They are working towards having ADUs help their own individual housing crisis that they're facing as well. I've seen it even up as far as like Maine is now starting to push for ADU legislation.
Do you have any examples of major employers trying to pursue this for a workforce housing alternative?
I don't know that I've seen any major companies using ADUs as a solution for workforce housing. Historically, there have been some companies like oil and gas who have used manufactured housing for temporary workforce housing. I know that both Facebook as well as Google are working on some pretty large projects that also involve housing in the South Bay. But these are very long-term projects, and I don't think that they touch ADUs. I think it is more large residences.
So, Cory, one last question that I have for you. I'm dying to know what is like something unique in the design and construction that you would say is some of your favorite things to incorporate about an ADU. Maybe somebody who is, ask for a little custom component to their particular ADU. Do you have any examples to share with us?
Yeah, so I think light is a really, really important factor. For us, our primary purpose, the reason we exist as a company is to cultivate wellness. We want to create emotional wellness for people, and I'll get into each of these points, but we want to create emotional wellness, we want to create family wellness, we want to create financial wellness, and we also want to create environmental wellness. So if we look at the emotional side of that, by creating urban infill, we allow people to not have to travel so far to get to work. And which means that they can spend more time with family and building those relationships and building emotional wellness. Also, the way that the ADU is designed, if you, Katie, are over here in Castro Valley at some point, we'd love to invite you in to take a look at the Spacial ADU. But what we often hear when somebody walks in is their breath is taken aback by how warm and inviting it is. The space was designed we have a giant 8-foot sliding glass door on the front, and we have these enormous windows on the back that when you open both, it allows for this incredible ventilation of air through the unit. So there's a really awesome connection between what's happening inside of the unit and outside. So it is bright and open and airy, but also if the homeowner needs respite and they need to just sort of clamp down and be separated from whatever's happening outside. They can close the windows, they can close the door. It is extremely energy efficient and involves a tremendous amount of sound dampening. So all of the outside goes away, and then they can just settle in and they can just calm down if that's what they need. So we wanted to create a place that really felt warm and inviting and gives a feeling of belonging, which creates that emotional well-being. In addition, because the unit is so energy efficient and because we involve a lot of sustainability features in the construction of the unit, it creates environmental well-being. And then if a homeowner is putting this in their backyard as a rental, that rental income can help to offset or help them with retirement, help them with medical bills, or just create a passive stream of income for them so that they can focus on other things in their life. So it creates financial well-being for them as well. And when somebody's putting this in their backyard for family, whether it's aging parents or for kids who are having a difficult time buying or renting a place here in California, it continues to nurture that family relationship in a close but not too close capacity. So overall, it's cultivating wellness in family, financially, and environmentally.
I like how you explain this wellness platform, combined with really freedom and simplicity. Then you add all of these other layers that you just mentioned here. It is such a compelling argument here to make sure that ADUs are put into the housing platform. And I'm glad California is leading the way and Spacial Homes is providing a solution. Any other components that you want to share with our listeners or any other innovations that you guys, have in the hopper here or developments?
For anybody who is interested, I would point them back to spatialhomes.com or to our Facebook or to our Instagram page. Just keep an eye in on the work that we're doing here and how we may be able to help them or folks that they know.
Well, Cory, thank you so much. You're our first ADU person on our podcast, and we are very happy to share you with the rest of our listeners. Thank you, Cory.
Thank you so much, Katie. I really appreciate your time and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to ChangeMakers with Katie Gore. To find out more about Katie, go to quadel.com. That's QUADEL.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.